We've talked in earlier videos about how double entry bookkeeping requires that the current account balance plus the financial account balance plus the official settlements balance must be exactly equal to zero. Now, for those of you who have followed the press accounts of international economics, probably find it a bit odd to say that the overall balance of payments must equal zero by construction. Again, because of the double entry bookkeeping. In fact, you may hear about balance of payments surpluses or balance of payments deficit in the press. And it's perfectly consistent with what I've talked about. It's just a slightly different use of terminology. So I want to talk about that here. When you hear the word balance of payments deficit, it means a particular thing. It means that the current account balance plus the financial account balance is negative. That the private transactions in goods and services and the private transactions on private financial accounts, that the sum of those two, the surplus, or the exports plus imports of goods, services, assets, adds up to something that's less than zero. Now, from this relationship up here, that necessarily means that the OSB is in surplus. Now, what does that mean? Recall that the official settlements balance reflects transactions by the central bank or central government where they are selling or buying official reserves. An official settlements balance that's positive means that the central authorities are selling official reserves, more official reserves on the international market than they're buying. They are losing or selling official reserves because they're exporting them. OSB in surplus means that there's an export of official reserves. Now, this balance of payments deficit then is related to a situation where a country, central authorities are selling their stock of hard currency and gold and other assets that are accepted on international markets. So losing official reserves is associated with a central authority intervening into the foreign exchange market. So when you hear the word balance of payments deficit, you should be very clear that that means that the central authorities are intervening in the foreign exchange markets and losing official reserves, exporting those official reserves. If a country is running a balance of payments surplus, it's just the opposite, that the sum of these two things is positive. The OSB must be negative, and therefore a country is gaining official reserves. They are importing, okay, the negative sign here means that there's an importation of official reserves, importation of hard currency by the actions of the central bank in the foreign exchange market. Again, we'll be talking in another video about the foreign exchange market intervention, but you should associate balance of payments surplus with gaining official reserves. Now, another thing that I want to make very clear is that saying that a country is running a balance of payments deficit does not mean necessarily that it is running a current account deficit or that there is a trade deficit. What you know is that the sum of the current account balance and the financial account balance is negative. Not that an individual component is. It's that the sum of these two things might be. In the same way, you have no idea whether or not the country is running a financial account balance deficit. You just don't know. All you know is about the sum. In the same way, obviously, a balance of payment surplus is not the same thing as a current account surplus or a trade surplus. So be careful about how you use these terms, balance of payments, deficit and surplus, current account deficit or surplus, because they have very particular meanings and it tells you something about the underlying behavior. Okay, that's an interpretation of balance of payments, surplus and deficit, and we'll take a look at other concepts in other videos.